Hey, Fletcher, Rowan from Silver Tiger Media. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
Excellent, mate. It's great to speak with you. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
Firstly, congratulations on the success of your career, 1988 until now, and still going strong. How the hell do you do it?
Lots of free beer.
Doesn't settle it for anyone.
Every night you come backstage, there's some free beer waiting for you.
Magnificent, beautifully put too. You started out in the hub of the US punk rock scene, but how did it all start for yourself and Pennywise?
I guess I got into punk rock in about 1980, when I think it was in the purest of its form. I guess, 77, 78, that Sex Pistols and all that stuff, New York Dolls was going on. But I think 1980 for me is when, Black Flag and the Descendants and a slew of other bands in Hermosa Beach, where we grew up, where I live now, it was just right in our own backyards. I mean, we literally had the Circle Jerks, Black Flag, the Descendants, Red Cross, the Germs. Some of the greatest bands of all time were right here or within an hour of us, And so that pretty much shaped my childhood. I was never into, music. I was into music, but nothing really struck me hard. And then I got into punk rock, and that led me into playing in a band in about 1981. Did that for a while and had different people I played with. And then punk rock scene kind of died away around 86. And I decided that I wanted to, start another punk band, and because I was bored. So we basically just created our own party. There was no real punk bands playing. A lot of them had petered out. There was not a lot of clubs anymore. So we just kind of created our own party and, wrote songs. Didn't have an album out, but we'd literally buy kegs of beer and, get people to let us play their backyards. And, a couple hundred people would show up, and fights would happen, mosh pits, shit would get broken, the cops would come, and it turned into kind of like this crazy following around these cities they call the South Bay. It's Manhattan, Hermosa, Redondo Beach. We had this following of people that was pretty ravenous, and if they knew we were playing, they knew there was going to be some type of spectacle going on. So we were able to, get that and make a name for ourselves. And then we went and recorded a single, gave it out to all our friends, and then wound up, playing a couple clubs in Hollywood, and eventually wound up on the local radio station at the college, and that led us to Epitaph Records, and then Epitaph Records changed the course of history by putting out, Bad Religion, Suffer, and Pennywise, and NoFX, and Rancid, and L7, and everything else they put out, and it just really exploded into a worldwide phenomenon of punk rock is cool again, and it was pretty awesome to go through all of it, to see it from the beginning till right now has been a hell of a ride, and it's not the same as it was, but it's still pretty damn fun.
Fantastic. And I still remember the excitement of listening to the self-titled album in 91, released by Epitaph, as you said, by Brett. Being a huge Bad Religion fan, it's really why I bought the first work. But how important was Brett to Pennywise right back at the start?
Hugely important. I mean, he changed our lives. There's no doubt about that. Without him, we would be nothing. We obviously did what we were doing before Suffer came out. We were a band. We were putting out music. And we were doing our own label, or friend's label, Theologian Records. But when Suffer came out, we immediately knew that was we wanted to be on that label. We wanted to be produced by those guys, recorded at that studio. Little did we know Brett was the producer, and it was his recording studio. We had no information, I just bought the record on vinyl and put it on my stereo. I put it on my stereo and played it once and started calling everybody I knew and said, holy shit, Bad Religion's got a new record out. It's the best thing I've ever heard. And, he actually turned us down because our first single we made, we kind of put 5 songs on it, and it actually it was a 7-inch, but it played at 33 RPMs to make it slow, make the, enable us to put more songs on. And we kind of put a couple different sounding songs, like kind of like one that was kind of a little bit funky punk, and just we instead of, we probably had like 15 songs, maybe 18 songs, instead of being really cohesive and putting all the songs that sounded together on one. We tried to spread it out so we'd have kind of like a calling card of like, hey, we got a little diversity here. So when Brett heard that single, he liked about 3 of the songs a lot, but the other 2, he was like, it wasn't exactly what he was looking for, and he called me and said, we're going to pass on it. It's really good, but we're not gonna sign you guys. And I said, okay, like, we're a bunch of fucking 20-year-olds who don't know shit from shit when it comes to like a record deal or anything, or and plus it's Epitaph Records, so it's not like some big major label and someone's it wasn't really like a letdown to not get signed. But at the same time, I wasn't taking no for an answer as usual. So I called him back about a week later. I said, we got a bunch more songs like on demo tapes, just on cassette. Like they're just shitty recordings of our band practices. Do you want to hear them? And he said, okay, bring them up. And I brought them up, and we played like 3 of them, and it was like the stuff off the self-titled. It was like Rules Made Up by You and Who's to Blame and Wouldn't It Be Nice? I think we listened to those 3. It was very crude recording, like literally just a cassette player recording. And back in those days, you would like move the cassette player around and try to find the best location for it in the practice room so you could hear all the instruments, And he stopped the tape after about 3 songs and said, are the rest of them like this? I said, yeah, there's about 10 more like this. And he said, you guys are signed. And
wow.
I love it. And so, I'm pretty glad I'm a persistent bastard, but and so I remember that day coming back to a party. Jim was there, and I said, "Hey, man, Brett loved it. We're signed to Epitaph," and we didn't really know what that meant. We just knew like someone's going to put our record out, and they're going to pay for us to record, and it's going to sound good, and that was it. And we talked about like the fact that we might sell 2,000 or 3,000 records, and we were like blown away that might actually happen. Yeah. Fast forward to nowadays when we've probably sold like 3 or 4 million, like no one had any idea that this was going to go down and it was going to have this impact. But obviously the world is a fucking crazy place and there's a lot of shit going on, and kids needed something to latch onto that made sense to them, that wasn't like singing about Ferraris and doing cocaine and heavy metal and, or whatever the flavor of the moment. I mean, back then metal was huge, and it was, Don Dokken and Whitesnake and all these guys in fucking women's clothes and makeup. I mean, I know some of those guys, and they're nice guys, don't get me wrong. Yeah. I'm friends with Don Dokken, but he's a super cool dude. He actually let us record in his studio and practice there. So I'm just saying there was such a phoniness on MTV and all this stuff that was being shoved down people's throat. Like, kids wanted something real. Like, kids that wore, like, shorts and T-shirts wanted to, have something that they could relate to, and that's what punk rock gave them, just honest lyrics about things that they were feeling in their lives, and it just blew up worldwide, and before you knew it, there was bands coming out of every country in the world, and they were all sounding like Pennywise and Bad Religion and NoFX and Rancid, and, the list goes on, and it was just a really cool thing to witness, that whole rebirth of punk rock, like the second coming of punk rock, and, and then to be able to go back and take bands, like when we got to the point where we were big enough, it's really weird. Like, we never wanted to like have like a band like the Circle Jerks open for us, because we were like, this is crazy. Like, this is one of the best bands in the world we grew up listening to. Like, how are we going to let them play before us? But at that point, we had sold 10 times as many records as them, or whatever it was, But it was such an honor to be able to go out and play with Circle Jerks and the Adolescents and TSOL, these bands that were like heroes to us and that like taught us everything we knew. And now we're on the road with Jack from TSOL, and just going crazy, like out there in the streets. Yeah, so it's been a pretty damn good ride.
Absolutely. I have to say, I was in Hermosa Beach recently and couldn't help but think about Pennywise and play your music. And do you remember a specific time when you started to notice a multi-generational following?
Multi-generational following, is that what you said?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, it's kind of been going on for a while now. I think like we're at a point where we've been around for so damn long. I mean, I think it's like, 25, 28 years, who knows? I can't keep track of it, but it's, you got a picture if a guy got into Pennywise when he was 20 years old and he had a kid when he was 20, and now he's 35 and his kid's 15, he's still going, the dad's still going to Pennywise shows and he's bringing his 15-year-old kid, I was going to punk shows when I was 15, so it started creeping in where it would be like, hey, this is my son. It's his first concert. It's his first Pennywise show. And we were like, all right, you want to drink a beer? And he'd be like, no, no beer for the 14-year-old. But it would be shit. We were drinking beer when we were 14 and doing a lot of other crazy shit too. Nowadays it's a little bit tamer. But parents are probably doing a little bit better of a job these days. But yeah, so we started noticing that. We're like, oh, that's cool. Did you see so-and-so brought his kid to the show? And now you can see that every single night. You can see a 40-year-old dude with his 20-year-old kid in the pit next to him, And it's just cool. I mean, obviously some kids, aren't going to grow up liking Pennywise, but typically, if your dad's cool and, teaches you what he knows, a lot of people follow in the footsteps of their mom or dad, and they wind up doing it. So it's pretty awesome. And at the same time, like, we're seeing 14, 15-year-old kids out there in the front row singing every lyric to songs that are 20 years old without their dads there, They're just there with their buddies. And that's, like, amazing to see. Like, you can connect with somebody like a song like Peaceful Day or something, and this little kids out there played this place called Petaluma. It's like a small town up in Northern California, and they kind of have this, like, it's not a teen center, but it's like some type of teen type center where they have skate ramps inside and they do shows. And I swear to God, there wasn't anybody older than 18, and there was about 800 kids in this room, and the front row was 14, 15, 16-year-olds, and they were singing every damn word. There wasn't even an adult in the building. And, like, I was just blown away by that. I was like, how is this happening? Like, where do these kids, but now you got the internet. So, like, if you like something, you just, you can search out, like, if you wind up hearing Bad Religion or hearing Pennywise and going to find No Effects, like, it's very easy to navigate around and find what you like. And if you like something, I that's what it's all about for me, is, like, getting into a band and listening to, like, a complete album, not just buying the single you heard on the radio on iTunes and buying a friggin' Mariah Carey single and a, Weezer single and making a compilation. It's about, like, getting into a band, getting into the lyrics, getting into the meat of what it's about, and listening to the whole albums. That's why, us coming out playing this About Time album, that's like a cohesive piece of work. I keep using the word cohesive, but it's like we really try to make an album like an experience. So we've always done that. We don't just throw a bunch of songs together. We write a lot of songs, we narrow them down, we craft it, and we want to create like an experience, like, from the sequencing of, what song's going to be last, what song's going to be first. Like, it's a lot of thought goes into it. And I think it's kind of a lost art. Like, nowadays kids don't even understand that. They just go buy one song and put it on their iPod and delete it 3 weeks later and buy something else. And it's like, kids need to get back into listening to whole albums and really trying to understand where a band's coming from. I think that's where you get the most impact, most bang for your buck.
I've got to tell you, Fletcher, I've got a 13-year-old who gets to Killing Time and then goes straight back to Peaceful Day. I'm really proud of him.
See, I said that in the last interview, and I don't think I said it in this one, man. Like, Suffer, that album, you put it on when you get in the car on the way to Hollywood to go to the gig, and the minute it stops, you start it again, and you listen to it 3 times on the way up there because it's like 22 minutes long. And that's what you did. Like, that's really, I mean, I've listened to the last No Effects record, like I said, like 500 times minimum. It's insane. Like, and I love getting into something that deep where, you can really start understanding where they were coming from. And that's what, albums are for. And I think it's just a bummer that there's so much, just buy the single, buy the song. Like I'm going to actually try to run a program on this next one. I'm going to pitch it to the band that we won't sell singles. We're just going to sell the album only. And if you don't want to buy the album, then you're not going to hear the record, because it's just like, it's the record industry is so reeling from all this like easy access from Spotify to iTunes, and like the art of actually, picking up a CD or picking up an actual album cover and looking at it and opening up the sleeve and feeling something in your hand while you're listening to it, like that. Those were the good old days. I mean, how many times did you pick up a record and check it out, And I mean, hundreds of times I've listened to records and just hold it in my hand and reread the lyrics and look for little nuances in the artwork. And we just become such a fast food society of just like, I want it now, and okay, now I'm not into it, I'm going to delete it, I'm going to move on to something else. And it's like, there's nothing tangible. It's so boom, boom, boom now. So kind of sad, but
it is a bit.
People are starting to maybe come back around a little bit.
I think you're absolutely right. An album like Yesterday's, which is fantastic, by the way, it can't be sold in bits. It's such an important album for the band, particularly, and for the fans, and seems such a dedication and celebration of Jason Thirsk.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things that is important about that album, is going back, listening to those songs with Jason. Even a lot of the demos that we were listening to were Jason singing on them. Sure. And being able to, some of my favorite songs we've ever written, just never made it to an album back in that time. I mean, when you're recording 13, 14 songs, you got to leave a lot of them on the cutting room floor. And, songs like Thanksgiving and, Starkey were just like crazy songs that were just so cool that never saw the light of day unless it was in a backyard party. And to be able to go ahead and record those was really awesome. And then, some of the stuff off Full Circle, I can remember like really, heartfelt song that Jim actually wrote about Jason that didn't make it on Full Circle, because Full Circle was such a hardcore, aggressive album. Yeah. That one just had a more mellow feel to it. But on this album, it's the perfect, ender to the album, and actually one of my favorite Pennywise songs of all time, probably, at this point. Like, back when I was listening to it, when we were voting on songs for Full Circle, I'm like, it's just a little too poppy or whatever. And, it got voted off it got, not voted off, but just wasn't used for the record. Mm-hmm. And then come back, 15 years later or 19 years later and listen to it and go, wow, when you put it in a different setting and you tag it on the end of this album that was kind of a tribute to Jason and a lot of his work, it just makes it all that more impactful. So, yeah, it's like, it's important, albums are important, and people getting deeper into, albums and bands, I think is important, because that's how you connect to a long-term fan. And I think we've been really fortunate to have fans that have stuck with us, for 20 years through thick and thin. And I think it's because they listen to our albums and they listen to our lyrics, and it connected with them on a deep level. They didn't just buy one song, they didn't just buy the song they heard on the radio and put it on their playlist. They went further than that, and that's why our shows are crazy. The passion's there, and I wouldn't change a thing. So we're sitting pretty good.
I think that's particularly true of About Time, which was hugely successful here and it's achieved gold status. It charted, from memory, at around about number 55 on the Australian album charts. But we're just so thrilled that you're coming back to see us. It's been a little while.
Yeah, it's been a minute. I mean, Soundwave, I think, is our last trip through. Which was a good time with old AJ, and I mean, that's like a perfect playground. But as you know, we love getting in the dirty nightclubs and making sure everybody's got a little bit of beer in them, and coming out there to play About Time. I mean, a lot of bands have been doing that around the world, and especially over here, doing 3 nights, 3 albums. I mean, Badwood's done it, Face to Face has done it, No Effects has done it. We've been holding out, and this is actually the first time we're ever, playing an album in its entirety, and it's going to be in Australia, so you guys are getting the first treat. And what better album than About Time, which was a big record down there, and it's one of my favorites. So
indeed, I can't wait to hear Killing Time live.
Oh, crazy! I mean, some of these songs we've never even actually played live, like on About Time. Like some of them have. I mean, I'd say we probably played 75% of them, but we've, when you're actually. When you have, I think we have about 130 or 40 songs now. It's like you're going to go out and play like 19, 20 in a night. So when that's, you got to narrow it down. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, we actually just got off the road. I just got home yesterday, and we've been gone we were out for like 3 weeks with Danzig, and then we went over to Hawaii and played a show, and now we got about a month till we head your way, and a little over a month, and we got to, go to get to band practice and learn how to play all these songs. So it's going to be pretty interesting. But I'm actually totally looking forward to it. It's going to be fucking great, I think.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. It will be brilliant. It kicks off on September 23 in Brisbane. And look, I'm wrapped that Killing Time will be there. We can't wait to see you with that huge RG420 and the guys performing with our pals from Anti-Flag as well.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be a good night, no doubt about that.
Now, do you think there's any possibility we might be able to get you onto Breakfast TV here during the tour, sort of Loveline style?
Possibility.
That's something I would love to see personally, but
yeah, come on, let's get down there. We'll get nice and hungover and throw up on somebody.
That sounds perfect. Look, I could speak to you all day, but I realise you're pressed for time. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you, Fletcher. Thank you very much for coming out to see us. It'll be sensational.
Looking forward to it, man, as usual.
Magnificent. Travel safely, my friend, and thank you for your time today.
See you soon. Thank you.
See you soon.
All right. Bye.
Hi, Fletcher.